Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Udis. Welcome to this series on the network of global corporate control. The network of global corporate control is also known as the banking cartel. Today's segment is pre-recorded and is called The Global Currency Reset and Me. Thank you to DCTV, Carmen Stanley, director, and a special thanks to Crusade Starnes, who's doing audio and prompter as a volunteer. Last week's segment gave you an overview. We told you that there's going to be a peaceful transition to a less corrupt world. We're going to make this transition by cleaning up the corruption in the world's money system, and we're going to do that by winding down the banking cartel that prints our paper currency and that thinks they're entitled to keep the difference between the cost of the paper money and the face amount on the money. This is not true. This week, we'll talk about how world events will affect you. You have a big choice to make. Who to believe? For the longest time, ever since the previous Ice Age, in fact, there was a single source of information. That source was from the black nobility. The bloodline families descended from the pharaohs. These families maintained their power by controlling all the banks who issue your currencies and all the information you were going to hear from all the media, from the universities, from the publishers. Now you're hearing different information from various other sources, and you're hearing information from me. I am claiming that what I'm telling you is the truth, and what's more, I'm claiming that I'm the lawyer for the world's wealth that was put in trust at the end of the World War II. In the beginning of this month, I told you the story of how Jose Rizal deposited the wealth of the world with the World Bank at the end of World War II. The banking cartel, those bankrupt liars, have been pulling out all the stops this past month, trying many times to steal the world's assets out of the global debt facility, which is also called TVM LSM 666, attacking me and my heart, using the fake puppet politicians on the world stage to try and scare you. What I'm telling you now is going to sound outlandish to most of the people. There's a critical mass of humanity who accept that what I'm telling you is true. I had to reach and convince these people before we in the coalition of the world's people, which includes the world's military powers as well as the United States military, could place this choice before you. There have been many critical forks in the road up until now, and we've managed to take the correct fork each time. Now we're in a position where we can clean up our world from the corruption coming from the banking cartel, peacefully. How do we accomplish this? By all of us working together in this coalition that's taking back our world and cleaning up the corruption coming from the banking cartel. We've inherited the institutional framework to accomplish this. I'm going to quote from a letter that I wrote to a representative of the banking cartel. I tweeted this 2 weeks ago. What I've said is that Marcos was a genius, and he intended that the job of M1 would not be perpetuated because he didn't trust that a single individual could withstand corruption like he could. Therefore, what he did was to have many competing potential authorized signatories and require them to be authenticated by the Bretton Woods Board of Governors. That means the World Bank and IMF. This is the job of M1, and you can see that on the screen in the teleprompter. It gives you a map of the world's finances controlled by the black nobility. We have the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. I vote the United States shares on the Board of Governors during this peaceful transition. You won't find a single embassy or United States government official who contradicts what I'm telling you now. We are all working together to stay out of World War III, and the chances that we manage this peaceful transition are greater than 90%. We know this from the National War College's power transition model that has been guiding us since 2004. You are wondering where you come into all of this. You are the most important player. This is obvious. Without you, none of this amounts to a hill of beans. After an entire ice age that the banking cartel and black nobility were in charge of the world's money, you are not in such great shape. Some of you have realized where you were and tried to fight this system, and you know it has not been easy. I have learned what we all inherited, and I am fighting these crooks along with a lot of other great people and along with the world's military powers, minus the corrupt brass. We're all managing to get through to you. The chances that we prevail are over 90%. The next step is for the people who understand what I'm saying to get 2 or 3 or more people to help them figure out what all is going on. This is essential because of the way you process information. You're vulnerable because you process information and think together with your ancestors and together with the rest of humanity. We're all connected through our hearts. This is good because it means that we're all able to work together to take back our world. The issue is that the banking cartel is using this connection to try and hold you back. First, I want to show you a video about military mind control weaponry, and that's in a link in the teleprompter. Military mind control technology. The Pentagon calls it artificial telepathy. There is electronic low frequency called ELF scalar weaponry, and it's very prevalent. It's being used to try and prevent the global currency reset. The large chain stores beam it to try and influence sales. It was used in the Iraq War to try and confuse the Iraqi troops. When you work together with a group of people, your group can spot if you're not acting like yourself. The people using this technology know that you're not as susceptible to their weaponry if you work in a group, and they may stop using it on you altogether. In case the agents of the banking cartel include you as a targeted individual to receive ELF scalar weaponry, you'll learn to discuss things with your group and to delay major decisions, especially decisions on matters involving finance. This way, you can make your own decisions and cut out the influence from ELF scalar weaponry. That's mind control. If you think you might be a targeted individual, chances are very good that you are. I gave you the link to the video about ELF mind control weaponry in a DCTV segment called What Can We People Do to Help? If you and your group want to join in the fight to clean up our world, you're most welcome. An important task in the cleanup is to replace the banking cartel's currencies in a global currency reset. The most important currency in the global currency reset are local currencies, which are issued by villages and towns. There's no single model to serve as an example for a community that's issuing its own local currency. It's up to the merchants and providers of services in each community that issues its local currency. The local currency will be a way for the merchants and service providers to barter. On the 2nd of February, a couple of years ago, 2016, I devoted a segment on local currencies in this DCTV series. All of the members of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund are simultaneously in transition. Their governance is going to become accountable to the local communities. There's a power vacuum as the corrupt elites are exposed as charlatans. The global debt facility, which ultimately finances all of the militaries, is going to ensure that the transition proceeds peacefully and doesn't outpace the ability of the local communities to come to meaningful consensus. Each country is going to proceed at its own pace and in its own way. Decisions are all going to be subject to review in accordance with the local communities. Resources in the global debt facility are ample and will underpin a peaceful transition. The greedy are going to be exposed just as the elites have been, without rancor and without respite. Secret societies clearly have no place. We now have a critical mass of people who understand this reality. Reality is reality, and truth is truth. We know from the power transition model that our chances that this all comes to pass are over 90%. At the beginning, things are going to start off slowly, but the dominoes are going to continue to fall. There are a lot of banking cartel sock puppets that are trying to convince you of the banking cartel's lies. They are working in the archives on YouTube that I upload after every segment. I don't want to give airtime to these sock puppets. I'll show you in a link to the teleprompter what these sock puppets have to say. What I'm showing in the first of the two links that I'm giving you in the teleprompter is that people are joining to put these sock puppets in their place. Something simple anyone in denial can do to gain knowledge. And that's in the teleprompter. What I'm showing you in the second link is that these sock puppets are making major mistakes. It was a sock puppet who gave me the list of muckety-muck agents of the banking cartel who signed the World Bank's financial statements. And I tweeted them. Another day, another failed attempt of a crook trying to steal the wealth of the world in the global debt facility. And here's the names who signed the World Bank financial statements. Robert Zoellick, former president of the World Bank, Queen Elizabeth Windsor II, the Secretary General of the UN, Ban Ki-moon, the President of the ICC, President Sang Hyun Song, the Managing Director of the IMF, Christine Lagarde, the Secretary General of the Bank for International Settlements, Peter Citras, President Hisashi Owada of the International Court of Justice, President Giancarlo del Buffalo of the FATF, and Pope Benedict Arnold the 16th, that's from the Vatican, former President Barack Obama, the Chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank, former Chairman that is, Ben Bernanke, and the former Secretary of the Treasury, Timothy Geithner, and Richard Haas of the Council of Foreign Relations, and Francis Curry of the WIPO. People are having a problem seeing the difference between what we can do now and what we're going to be able to do later. We can accomplish our entire agenda, but it's going to take time, and we're going to have the discipline to focus on what we're able to accomplish immediately, keeping sight of our long-term plans. What we can do now is to let people know what we intend to do so that they can join in our efforts. During the rest of the remaining time, I'm going to tell you how to weather the transition financially. The banking cartel is trying the same thing that it did at the end of the Roman Empire to devalue our currencies. And you can see in the graph how this is similar when we have the quantitative easing that just waters down the value of the currency. I expect that we're going to have a smooth transition because the world's wealth is backing us in the global debt facility. What you can do as insurance, and this is not an investment, is to purchase gold that can be divided into small amounts to use as currency. Why is gold not an investment? That's because there's a lot of gold in the global debt facility. We're only going to release as much of the gold as is necessary to replace the world's paper currencies. We're going to do this eventually. And we're not going to replace all of the paper currencies, but only that amount which is equal to the world's real economy of goods and services in the gross domestic product of the countries of the world. As the world's economies grow, we're going to mint more currency in the form of aurum. That's gold encased in a plastic envelope that handles just like paper money, but it's got gold equal to the value of the face amount of the bill. We're going to have a big job evaluating the real price of gold. We're going to use a basket of goods and services, and we're going to use the major currencies, the prices of the major currencies. This is all set out in monetary agreements that the countries are going to enter into. If there's still time, I'm going to show you a clip from a video that was tweeted after YouTube removed the sound twice. This is to clarify some disinformation that the banking cartel has been spreading to try and hide the black nobility at its center. It's false that Rothschild owns the banking cartel. Rothschild is only a low-level knight of the garter and does not call the shots or own the banking cartel. It's the black nobility that calls the shots for the banking cartel. I'm putting the link to the video in the teleprompter in case we run out of time. Up to you, Carmen.
And then this was the main reason that I wanted to contact you, because this person, Ben van Rossum, he calls himself the nonconformist forever. He was reacting to something that I had tweeted. He was replying to Harry Ney, who's a person who's been very active in retweeting what I've tweeted. And what Ben van Rossum said, he is confused. He said, thanks to people like him, honest and real patriots who see what's happening, the United States Constitution is suspended since 1913. That's correct. And the Fed is a private bank, which is correct. But then he says owned by Rothschild and Company. That is not correct. And so he says the information is clear. No, it's not clear. Ben van Rossum is confused, and the banking cartel likes to try to get people to think that Rothschild is behind the banking cartel. But Rothschild, although he's part of the banking cartel, that's true, but he's low level, and the people who are really in charge of the banking cartel, that's called the black nobility. They're bloodline families that extend back to the time of the pharaohs. And they're putting Rothschild out in front to confuse people. So that was what
Of course, the banking cartel uses its sock puppets to try and reach the people who are watching the archives of the DCTV series that I upload on YouTube. The banking cartel doesn't seem to understand that it backfires whenever they try to censor me or provide disinformation to my viewers. I'm giving you this information to help you during the global currency reset, when the media is going to keep on spreading their disinformation, masquerading as reality. No, folks, reality is with us and not with the banking cartel. More and more people are going to be joining us in reality. I also want to reassure you, about the transition during this period that only a critical mass knows what the reality is, when we are going to bring the others up to speed. Do you remember the clip on murmuration? That's how starlings fly in large groups at sunset. We ran that clip last July, and I'm going to put the clips in the teleprompter. Human beings are interconnected, just as starlings. This means now that we're all in reality, and we're all interconnected. The banking cartel has a much, much harder time disrupting us or frightening us or making us panic with their lies. We process information with our hearts and with our collective unconscious. And this information that is the truth about the world's wealth and the global currency reset is going to wind down the network of global corporate control, that is, the banking cartel. As insurance, I'm advising you to keep some gold or silver on hand to use as money in the unlikely event that there's a crash of the world's currencies and the Federal Reserve note. This is the same advice which I gave to a gold trading firm, Rosalind Capital, that contacted me in August. Rosalind prepared this chart on the price of gold in the 21st century. I just blocked someone who tried to say that I was sitting at the table with the elites and that I oppose men. People shouldn't put words in my mouth. I can speak for myself. And during this transition, I'm going to try and hold down the fort until the people at grassroots levels have decentralized enough to speak for themselves. Then the people are going to retrofit things. That's how we're going to proceed during the global currency reset. The Coalition for the Rule of Law acts from the grassroots as each person decides for himself or herself whether they choose to side with the banking cartel or the Coalition for the Rule of Law. It looks like I've got some time to speak to you extemporaneously. 5 minutes. That's great. Okay, so we're talking about the choice you have. And let's talk about what happens if you decide just to stick with the banking cartel, the system that you know. It's not going to last very long, folks. The alternative is World War III. And how do I know this? Well, when Jacek Kugler brought me this power transition model in 2004, he said, Karen, we've got 5 years to try to prevent World War III. And that's what we've been doing, using the power transition model. How do I use the power transition model? You've seen me doing that in the last 3 years through the internet and also through DCTV. What happens is I tell you what's going on. It's all a matter of feedback. I get feedback from you. When I write these teleprompters, what I do is I look to see what people are interested in, and it's not always easy to find this out because all of the counters on the internet are actually wrong. And as an example of that, if you look to see what the numbers were about 3 years ago, they're about 4 times what the numbers are now. And some people have said that they've seen the numbers of viewers on YouTube going down as they watch. So you've got to figure out what is reliable information. You have to start developing something called critical thinking and realize that we're all in this together, and the chances that we manage to work things through are excellent. They're over 90%. And so what you need to do is you need to pay attention. If you're still watching the mainstream media, you need to take it with more than 1 grain of salt. That's what the banking cartel wants you to think. So when you watch the mainstream media, you have to figure out what is the reaction. I'll just give you an example. The banking cartel does not like the fact that we are armed. And so all of these incidents, which involve strange shooters, that's to get us to disarm voluntarily. Well, I can tell you, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna, if things go amiss, I'm not going to just throw in my arms. But the chances, as I've mentioned, that we all hang in there together, and that's also because you can see, if you look at the comments on the YouTube, there are any number of people that are very, very much aware. And I find them all the time. They call me up, or it turns out some of them are casual people that I've just dealt with a few times. And they want to know firsthand what's going on. And of course, I learned from them as well, because I've been getting training on the job. You can see over the timeline how and in trying to reach out to you and trying to get things covered by the media. That's when I found out, no, the media is all controlled and doesn't want to know the truth. So you really are going to learn by doing, and you're also, I can tell you a little bit about my experience of mind control, because I've been working myself loose from mind control. Every time I try to write something, sometimes I forget what I used to know. That's mind control. And so you just have to be disciplined and open. I find that in the morning when I first wake up, that's when my mind is the clearest. And then sometimes during the day I get confused again. So you'll work with mind control and you'll figure it out as well. During this segment, we've given you the choice whether you want to take sides in a struggle to end corruption in the world's money. This corruption affects everything you think you know and everything in the world. The chances those of us who understand reality will win this struggle are excellent.